What's up, guys? Welcome to another Q&A episode. Been getting a lot of questions lately, a lot of the same question. So I figure I'll go ahead and now's as good a time as any to do a Q&A. Just jump right into the first question. It's definitely the 200 to 800. What are my thoughts? Am I going to get one? This has been just like lighting up my DMs and my comments and stuff. First off, obviously, I don't have it. I haven't seen it. So these are just initial speculations. There's two reviews on YouTube, which I'm sure everybody who's interested already knows. Gordon Lang's and the Pangolin Wildlife lady, Janine's. Those seem to be really the only two that people have actually gotten, reputable hands-on with it. I mean, I don't really have anything too interesting or controversial to say about it other than I think it looks amazing. I think it looks great. I think it's going to be absolutely perfect for a middle of the road lens for the Canon RF system finally. There's certainly going to be some trade-offs, not being an internal zoom compared to the Sony and Nikon versions. But I mean, with adding 200 extra millimeters, that would have been, to do an internal zoom would have been highly implausible. Or at least you would not have want to seen the size or price of it if it were. So personally, I'm fine with that. The fact that they are competing with the other 150 to 600, 200 to 600 lenses out there, and they just went ahead and added an extra 200 millimeters for everybody, I think that's incredible. That's definitely a first, I think, in terms of a zoom. So that's highly impressive. Even at f9, I think that's, when you're looking at 800 f9 versus 800 f11, because they already have their 800 f11, well, it's 2/3 of a stop faster, so that's great. I think people's other biggest concern or question was that, what's it going to be at 600? Everybody was hoping it was going to be at 6.3 to match the competition, but I really just didn't think that was going to happen, because why would Canon make a 100 to 500 L series lens at 7.1 and then come out with a non-L lens that would be longer, 600, and faster in an aperture? They wouldn't do that. So I mean, logically, you should have seen that coming. There was no way, physics aside, there was no way that Canon was going to do a 600 6.3 in the middle of that range. So we get the 600 f8 basically. But again, if you're comparing that to what Canon already has, they have the 600 f11, and now they're giving you a 600 f8 for twice the price. And then they're giving you an 800 f9 for twice the price of the 800 f11. So if you're one of those people that was shocked or disappointed by the slow apertures and the aperture changing throughout, I just feel like you probably should have seen that coming. Next biggest thing on most wildlife photographers' list of curiosities for this lens was definitely weather sealing. Canon has said that it is kind of weather sealed, so it has an O-ring, we saw that, and they said that it is weather and dust and water resistant. I'm assuming there's an O-ring in the zoomy bit, but maybe it's not as robust as what they put in the 1 to 500. I don't know. So I guess where it gets a little interesting is price versus weight now. So we're looking at like $1,900 US is what everybody's saying online, which for what it is, I think is an amazing price. I was actually expecting it to be a little bit more. So that's pretty cool. But then there's the weight factor. This thing is going to weigh like 4.5 pounds, which, when you compare it to something like that thing weighs like 7.5 pounds or something. Yeah, that's great. But 4.5 pounds ain't no featherlight, it's still not something you're going to be able to strap to like a Peak Design capture clip like I did with my 1 to 500. And it's still going to wear you down when you're walking, if you're hiking handheld and stuff like that, because 4.5 pounds is significantly heavier than the 1 to 500, and it's like way heavier than the 1 to 400. Although quality wise, I think it's going to be better than the 1 to 400 too. So like everybody else, I did watch the two videos of Gordon's and Janine's, and Janine actually posted images, and she seems to be the only one that was allowed to do images. I don't know what's going on there, but the images that she posted, they looked fine. They looked, as I would expect for that lens. And obviously she didn't have as much time, as she probably would like to get anything like super amazing or anything. But, the images that she got, I think they looked great. And especially, making the point about being an 800 and like being aware of the limitations. 800s are not for shooting distance. And I have harped on this so much. The farther away your subject is, the more physics is against you, and heat haze can happen at any altitude, at any climate, at any time of year, and at any temperature. Those atmospheric distortions can be there no matter what. And the farther you are, the more you're shooting through, it's just going to get ugly. So, people have those same expectations, uh, the same naiveness maybe, or ignorance, whatever, when it comes to long lenses. And I see that with everything. I saw it with the 800 f11. I saw it with I saw it with the 150 to 600s, the 1 to 500, everything. People always saying like, this lens looks like crap, and I got this shot and it looks horrible. And then you take a look at the shot and it's like something that's 500 meters away or something ridiculous. So the whole point there, before I get lost on a complete tangent on physics and if you're not new to the channel, then it's happened before. The whole point is it's going to be great within its limits, just like every other lens. Minimum focus distance looks pretty solid. I think they said 3.3 meters ish, which is definitely better than the 800 f11. So we'll definitely take that. Haven't seen anybody mention focus breathing yet, but it's a real thing, and it's with pretty much all zooms. Most zooms have some level of focus breathing, and what that means basically is that, like, on a zoom lens, you're not always going to get, it's usually going to be a little bit wider, sometimes tighter depending on the focus breathing, but usually it's a little bit wider than what they claim. So like, the 150 to 600s might not be 600, they might be 560. The 1 to 500 is not really a 500 at close distances. It's more like 480 or 460 or something. So that's focus breathing. I don't know if it's going to be affected by that, but I'm sure it probably will be. So if you were to put it side by side to a true 800 prime, you might notice that it's a little bit wider on the long end. So all in all, I think this is going to be an amazing lens. I think it's going to be really great for 95+% of Canon wildlife photographers. But as for me, sadly, I'm not going to be getting it. And basically the only reason why is money. Like, I just don't have $1,900 to throw to a lens, because if you've seen my recent videos, I just got that 500 f4 and I had to make a lot of sacrifices with my gear to get that lens. So I don't need it. My 500 f4 Mark II, I absolutely love. That was another question that I got, was do I regret the 500 f4? More specifically, do I regret selling my 1 to 500 to help pay for it? And the answer is no, not really. I've been very, very happy with the 500 f4 Mark II being, the image quality has been incredible. I knew it would be a step up, but I didn't know it would be that much of a step up. And then with the teleconverter, I have the 1.4 Mark III teleconverter. I almost never take it off, so I basically have a 700 f5.6 all the time, and that's incredible. I absolutely love that. Coming from my 500 7.1 and coming from my 800 f11, having a 700 f5.6 has been mind-blowingly awesome. A lot of people complaining about the weight of the 500 f4 Mark II. I personally haven't had a problem with it. I was very surprised about that. I was expecting that I would, and I was expecting that I would need a gimbal and a tripod and all of that. And I've put it on my tripod a few times, thought about getting a monopod, but I've just really discovered that hand holding just hasn't been an issue for me, and I'm very thankful for that. And I'm very much enjoying just using this like handheld, walking around. It's been great. Okay, so that was a little bit of a tangent, but that was a legit question. Quite a few people have asked me. But back to the 200, 800 and why I'm not getting one. Aside from the money, like if I were to theoretically come up with 1,900 bucks, which wouldn't be that hard, over the next 6 months or something. The problem with me is because I sacrificed so much gear that I have and that I had and used and all that to get that. I made a whole video about, getting that lens and what it took and why and the thought process. So you can check that out if you want. But basically I sold my 1 to 500, which is my favorite lens of all time. And I do miss it. I don't regret selling it, but I do miss it like crazy. So now I have no zoom. So if I were to come up with extra money, I also sold my R6, which was just a third backup body. And I know that sounds silly having 3 cameras, but when you factor in that I also do YouTube for a living and that Camera Lady and I run like a full-time photography production company and all that stuff, like we need multiple cameras, and camera lady needs her own cameras. That was one of our backup cameras. Now it's gone. So if I were to have $1,900 extra dollars, I wouldn't be picking up an extra lens that it would be nice to have, but I would be picking up a lens that I need and a camera body. I mean, for 1,900 bucks, that's I could get, you know, an R7 and a 1 to 400 almost. So I'll probably go that route. I still definitely want to pick up the RF 1 to 400 just to have like a super, the lightest, tiniest, most travel friendly potential wildlife lens for scouting and just to have in the bag or even in the pocket to go along with when I'm carrying this, or just to have when I don't want to carry that and just throw it in the car and go, you know, hike and check out some whatever areas that I haven't been before. So the 1 to 400 would make much more sense for me, again, because of the size, the weight, and the price, than going for the 2 to 800. I also sold my 800 f11 in order to help pay for that 500 back there. And I don't regret that either. I love the 800 and I championed it for a long time and I recommended it for a long time and I still recommend it because of the weight, basically, because of the weight and the price. So if you can deal with the really slow aperture of the f11, the 800 prime f11 is still a fantastic lens. It's quite sharp. The image stabilization is great and the price is amazing. If I only still had my 1 to 500, I don't know if I would get this lens. I mean, I would be tempted because of the reach. Like, reach is king, you know, and that's why Canon put that extra 200 millimeters on there. People can moan and complain all they want about the slower apertures, but when it comes down to it, most of the time you're going to want that reach. I definitely think this would go well with the 1 to 400 because, you know, then if you want something super light, you've got it. But if you want something longer or just an all-around better lens, then the 2 to 800 would be your jam. And then if you put either one of those on a crop body, like an R7, an R10, you know, whatever, like that's going to give you a lot of reach. And I think for anyone in the Canon world who is considering one of the third-party 150 to 600s, you know, the Sigmas, the Tamrons, I think going with this Canon would be a no-brainer. It might be probably more expensive, but I think it's going to be better. I think it's going to be, you know, better with image quality. It is going to be a tad bit slower, but it's going to be native, and you know the autofocus is going to be on point, and you know you're not going to have any adapters, and I think it's just going to be a really solid option. Couple small downsides, and this is with most Canon lenses, but the fact that they made a non-removable collar, like you can't even remove the foot plate, you know, like if they left the collar on there and then you could slide the foot plate off, that would even be better because that foot plate looks pretty big. And while it's a great handle to hold on to if you're hiking around or whatever, like it can be annoying to put in your bag, or if you just don't need it and you just, you know, don't want the extra weight and the extra bulk of the handle sticking out. And then the other thing that just infuriates me to no end with Canon, as it does with many people, is the fact that they still refuse to make their foot collars, their tripod foot thingies, Arca Swiss compatible. Oh, that drives me nuts. And it's so silly and it's so minor, but it makes such a big difference, and it would be so easy for Canon to do. It would just be so easy. I certainly don't think that would be any sort of a deal breaker at all, though, for considering getting the 2 to 800 or any Canon lens, really. It's just one of those minor annoyances. So that's my initial thoughts on the 2 to 800. I will definitely be renting it when it comes out at the very least because I do want to do some videos with it, of course. I do want to see what I personally can get out of it instead of just relying on what everybody else is doing. And I do just want to play with some new gear. So as soon as it comes out and it's available to rent, I will rent it and I will be messing around with it. So stick around for that for sure. If you guys have any other questions or thoughts about it, leave those in the comments down below. We could talk about it. I'm curious to see if you're interested and if you're thinking about getting it. I imagine they're going to have some issues though. I imagine it's going to be pretty hot and like they're probably still going to have some shipping issues. So just even if you pre-order it, like just be aware, like it might not come for a minute. A couple other things. I've got 3 spots left open on my Scotland workshop, so that's going to be incredible. June 2024, seabirds, seascapes, razorbills, puffins, all the amazing stuff, castles, you know, epic sea cliffs. So hit me up pretty quick if you want to come with me to Scotland. Links will be down below for the workshops. Private workshops, Central New Mexico, Albuquerque, Bosque, all kinds of birding, wildlife, cranes, sandhill cranes, snow geese, raptors, waterfowl, awesome ducks, Lots of good stuff. I do my private workshops every winter from November to February. So if you want to get in on that, you can do anywhere from 2 to 4 days. And it'll be just you and me, and I'll take you out to all the best spots. And no matter what your level is, if you're new to birding and you want to learn, then we'll go over all the settings and birding techniques and all of that stuff. If you're a seasoned birder and you're just looking for a great time and want somebody to show you the best spots and help you out with some composition tips or editing or whatever, the private workshops are completely tailored for you. They're definitely my favorite. They're filling up pretty fast. I've got just a couple spots left in November and then a few spots in December and January. You can check out the link below for those as well. I really appreciate you sticking around this far. Definitely hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. It's the best thing you can do for the channel. If you love what I do and you want to throw a little more support my way, then you can check out the channel memberships for a couple bucks a month. You get extra videos, extra content, editing tutorials, image critiques, and it really helps the channel out, and Camera Lady and I really appreciate all of the channel memberships. All right, that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. I'm gonna throw in a couple of clips from a camping trip that we just got back from yesterday, and didn't have too much happen, wasn't enough for a video, but I did discover that using my rooftop tent as a blind was quite effective for shooting some of these juncos and squirrels and stuff like that, just around the area of the campsite. So that was kind of cool. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.